Ruth's latest novel, 13 Steps Down, is set in West London. The central character's obsession with the 1940 serial killer John Christie leads him to make a pilgrimage to the area where the murders took place.
When I come to somewhere like this, I want to get a feeling of the atmosphere of the place, the feel of the place, rather than to I want to give an impression of it, rather than to create a facsimile of what it is. This is the last thing I want to do. I want to have a feel for it. And I knew when I came here that here was something which was a total contrast. You couldn't get further away from what had been here before.
10 Rillington Place, Notting Hill, was the scene of 8 murders. The ground floor tenant, John Christie, buried his victims in the house and garden. He was hanged in 1953.
I'm not usually very interested in old crimes, in crimes of the real life crime, but the case of John Reginald Halliday Christie always has interested me. He was an obnoxious man, a dreadful man. Perhaps one of the things that interests me so much is that people thought he was a good, virtuous, honest, upright citizen. And he also was a marvellous hoaxer. Of course, he simply, by the way he talked and his authoritative manner, he made people believe that he was halfway to a doctor, if not further. So I thought that I would write about a man, not again a very nice man, who's very interested in real-life crime, but has a real obsession for Christie, and who wants to live near where he lived.
Mix was standing where the street should have been, or where he thought it should have been. By this time, shock and disbelief were past. Bitter disappointment, then rage, filled his body and climbed into his throat, half choking him. How dared they? How could they, whoever they were, destroy what should have been a national monument? The house itself should have been a museum, one of those blue plaques high up on its wall. The garden, lovingly preserved, just as it was, part of a tour visiting parties could have made. If they had wanted a curator, they need have looked no further than him.
He thinks that places like Rillington Place should be preserved as national monuments. I don't agree with that at all. I think that it does encourage ghoulish people to make a shrine, and to it's an unhealthy sort of interest. He is rather an unhealthy sort of person, and of course it's his pursuit of this leads him into a great deal of trouble.
Mrs. Christie's out, is she?
She's away up in Sheffield at her sister's.
You may feel...
It was seeing the film that started him off. He was still living at home then, and he watched it on his mother's old black and white television.
That's the X Factor.
Never much for reading, he had found the book of the film, as he thought of it, on a stall outside a junk shop. It came as a surprise when he looked at the photographs and saw that John Reginald Halliday Christie looked not like Attenborough, but far more like himself. And it was from that time that he began referring to him in his mind as Reggie, rather than Christie.
No.
After all, what had he done that was so terrible? Rid the world of a bunch of useless women, hookers, streetwalkers, most of them.